Welcome back to the Meaningful Success Podcast. My name is Siah, and this is my father.
Hey, I'm Wade.
And Hey, I'm Wade is a expert in all things to do with yoga and the art of stretching and flexibility and other such things. Well, I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you that because you're the expert. So, how did these things come about?
I've never done yoga that I'm aware of. I've done stretching for running, but that's about it. I don't know.
Well, welcome to the Meaningful Success Podcast. Again, this show is about experiencing success in every area of our lives and the pursuit of that, and knowing what's most important to us and all that good stuff. Today, we have a topic that Wade, my dad, has come up with that I am excited to talk about. But before we get into that, we want to talk about what were our weekly wins this week. So, Father, what was your weekly win this week?
Well, my weekly win this week is that I've been consistently exercising for a good while, but I've kind of worked into a routine that's really being productive. Sometimes I kind of get a little bit, you look at balance, you get kind of on one thing or another. I kind of do weightlifting or I do running or do whatever, but I've kind of gotten a pattern now where I'm doing working out 6 days a week.
Wow.
Two of them are like abs and burpees and that kind of calisthenics and whatever. And then 2 days are weightlifting. And then 2 days are long walks plus runs, and walks or runs are like 4 to 5.5 miles, something like that. So,
wow.
So I've gotten this pattern. It's been a few weeks now. And I mean, I've been doing something for a while, but this combination of mixing it up, that's kind of new, and I'm kind of feeling like it's helping. So I think that's a win for me.
The variety you mean is helping?
Yeah, because it's one of those things that it's real easy. Like I said, there's things that I've just done for a long, long time. I mean, decades. I've been a walker or a runner for a long time, and I've gone through phases where I did a lot of weightlifting or whatever. But every one of those things has its own benefit, and this mixture of kind of mixing up, which I guess is in a sense kind of CrossFit. I mean, that you're mixing things up and you're doing something different from that standpoint. Maybe that's the same thing, but each exercise benefits you in a different way. And so, yeah, it's the mixture and the balance that I think is really, really good. So, Siah, what is your weekly win?
You'd think that in asking that question, I would have thought about this beforehand, but I really didn't. My weekly win is more of like me and Audrey's win. We've been really working on neither of us have ever been any good at like budgets and things like that. And we set a goal for like, trying to reduce spending, trying to do things like that. And we set a specific amount of money that we were like, all right, we don't want to spend any more than this on groceries this month. And we've been working our way down because groceries is one of those things that just can get so out of control when you're like, how am I spending so much money? I don't even know how I'm spending this much money on groceries. And anyway, so we've had this goal for a few months now, and we've been kind of working our way down. And this month is the first month that we have successfully come in under that number. And so I'm really proud of that. And we're really proud of ourselves for that, and just seeing some progress in just our financial life and getting goals, getting closer to our larger goals and all that stuff. So that was a really big win, was kind of coming to that realization. I think it was a few days ago that I was adding everything up. I was like, oh, this is the total. And hey, we have this much left and we're definitely going to be fine. And, so that was really cool.
Do you mix in like groceries and eating out and all that stuff
Those
together?
We have them be different categories. So this is just for like groceries.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's gotten crazy. I mean, I guess it's all the inflation that's in the market right now. But I mean,
yeah,
what was $150 run in the past is now $200. It feels like, maybe that's not accurate, but that's certainly what
The
it feels like.
pandemic changed a lot. Ever since the pandemic, things have gotten much more expensive.
Yes.
And they haven't gone back down. So that's a part of it
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
well,
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. So let's dive into this week's topic, which is growing a penny a day. And
Yes.
this is your brainchild. So why don't you were telling me
Well,
a little bit about it before.
Well, I was just trying to think through how to phrase this. I think where this came from was, at different times I've had different kind of things that I've tried to kick off or initiate and things, whether that was way back in 2012 when I launched my first book or when I did some e-learning courses or other things like that. From a financial perspective, I'd have these goals that I'd have in mind, I wanted to achieve, X dollars in a monthly time period or something from that perspective. But in doing so, I was looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, ideally, this is where I'd like to be. And there's nothing wrong with having stretch goals. But I think that to a large extent, what I did is I set goals that may or may not have been realistic, or at least not realistic from a standpoint of growth. And in some cases, even if I could achieve that, it was going to be hard to sustain because of some of the work on my end. That's like when I had my own consulting practice. And so I was thinking about this from the standpoint of, rather than this wide, large goal that's out there that I'm setting and versus, something that's more reasonable. Um, what if I set a objective of just something very basic, like, maybe it's an exaggeration to say a penny a day. But if what would I need to do to either earn or save a penny a day? We were talking about budget just a moment ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so rather than setting this, okay, well, what do I need to do? Let's say I got $1,000 gap in my budget that I'm wanting to fill. So you're sitting there thinking, okay, how am I going to get this $1,000? And not only does that psych you out and discourage you, but it also kind of limits your thinking. But if you were saying, okay, from a day perspective, what could I do to save a penny a day or earn a penny a day? Um, and that maybe seems like minuscule type of objective, but I think that it gets different results when we start thinking about that. I mean, just small items, small actions, small to dos could actually accomplish that, and then you kind of baby step that up. I mean, from for those friends of mine who've seen the What About Bob movie from the early '90s,
Yeah.
everything was
Baby step
baby
out the
steps,
door.
baby step out
Baby
the door.
step. Baby step to the door. Baby step to the doorknob. Baby step out the door. Yeah.
So, but it's that same principle. I mean, and again, maybe a penny a day seems a little bit silly, but that's kind of where I was going with this because I thought that actually applies beyond budgetary things. That applies
Yeah.
to even activities. If for example, I used the example of the exercise, but if let's say are not doing any exercise right now and you want to establish a routine, could you make a commitment to do one sit up a day and maybe one push up a day? I mean, and that seems so small, but if you were doing that consistently and every day you're doing one push up and one sit up that you haven't done previously, you're doing something that you were not doing before. Or
Something
setting,
is better than nothing kind of mentality.
yes, it's kind of goes back to that principle of, objects in motion stays in motion, and object at rest stays at rest. When you start moving things into motion, there is a natural momentum that builds in that. And likely, if you set that goal to do that one push up and one sit up a day, and maybe walk for 5 minutes, probably in a few weeks, if you're doing that, you're probably going to see that you're doing more than one sit up and more than one push up and more than
Yeah.
5 minutes of walking. And so that was kind of the concept that I just thought we could talk about and see, what how that might impact things that we're doing.
So I guess in this time of your sabbatical,
Mhm.
What I mean, you mentioned already the fitness journey and
Yep.
the changes to your exercise regimen and things like that.
Mhm.
Uh, what does that look like? Just in other ways. In another way, what's another way that you're doing? You know, the baby
Right.
steps, the penny a day.
Well,
That's
actually,
incremental growth.
there actually are a few other things, and some of them tie directly to some things that, like I mentioned last week on music. I have begun setting some time aside to start doing my music again. You know, at this point, it's not really creating music or recording music or writing music. It's simply listening to music and or singing along to music or picking up my guitar more frequently than I was before. Um, and that's something that I'm applying this principle of just more consistency, small steps more consistently over time.
Yeah,
Uh, and I'm doing the same thing uh, with respect to our finances. There's some things that I'm looking at and saying, you know, are there simple things that I can cut minor things out that really are not going to be missing? So, you know, you've got all these subscriptions these days to this channel, this service, this streaming service, various things. And honestly, sometimes you can sign up to something that you forget about. So like
yeah,
I was going through the budget the other day and looking and saying, "Oh, well, here's a subscription that I never even go out to this." So it's not, you know, it wasn't a major financial drain. It was just a small little thing, and so it's not really a huge earn back, but it's something. So it's that small thing that builds cumulatively.
yeah, yeah. This is something that both I feel like I learn and relearn over and
Mm,
over again. And I have a really hard time having it stick for me. Um, just this idea that like, hey, like as long as I'm doing something each day or some, you know, in whatever area that could be, whether that's like fitness or you know, my writing or whatever it may be, uh there's such an all or nothing big goal mindset that is so
mhm,
hard to shake for me.
mm.
So
Why do you
you
think that
know,
is?
well, that's what I'm really not sure. I think part of it is comparison, not even just to other people, but also to where I feel like I'm supposed to be, or the level I'm supposed to be at, or you know, the future self that I want to be.
Mhm,
And sometimes those incremental changes can feel so insignificant in comparison to whatever that state is that it just kind of spirals into futility, this feeling of
mhm.
futility. So I guess for me, like this is a valuable thing and it's something I feel like I keep coming back to. But what do you think? Do you have any thoughts on like how do you turn this from a cool thought, you know, an
Right.
interesting revelation that you have this one time? How do you turn that into just sort of your lifestyle?
Well, you know, that's a good question. I've read or I've heard that there's, you know, studies that say how long it takes for habits to kick in. So there's part of this is decision. Part of this is building a routine or a habit where it becomes second nature, and part of it is overcoming discouragements that you may hit along the way. So, you know, from a standpoint of habits, I've heard that it takes like 3 weeks of acting on something to kind of build that pattern to where it becomes kind of second nature.
Yeah.
I don't know if that 3 weeks is right, and it may vary by person, but that's kind of what I have heard. But I think that the bigger piece is that discouragement. In fact, I was talking with someone the other day we were talking about this from the context of one of their goals that they were trying to hit was with weight loss. And, they were sharing with me that they were struggling with some things, and and there's a sense of futility sometimes as we go with that. And I know that I've gone through that myself when I had a big struggle with weight when I was in high school and such. And really, I think I shared this on an earlier podcast last maybe last year or early this year.
Yeah.
I had to get to a point where I was telling myself, you know. I want to do better tomorrow than I did today. And it
Yeah.
really wasn't setting a goal that was a specific number. It's just I want to do better tomorrow than I did today, and or next week than this week, or next month than this month, that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
And and partly that comes to allowing your eyes to get on incremental progress and celebrate it and appreciate it, not just the end goal. And I think that that's the challenge, because the individual I was talking to, you know, I've seen them make progress many times in just a short period of time, just with some small commitments that they were making. But sometimes when we have this ultimate objective that we have in our mind and it takes us a while to get there, sometimes it just feels exhausting. And
Yeah.
and that's part of the battle that we have. And I think that may be one of the struggles that we all face is, the benefit of the small challenge is that it's achievable. The hard part about the small challenge is it's a small incremental step
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And there's something that we need to kind of change in our thought process to allow and to celebrate and to appreciate, hey, I lost a pound this month, or I saved, $20 in my savings account that I didn't save last week or last month, something like that. And sometimes I think it is that battle that it's a small achievable thing, but it's a small small step forward.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes the feeling can be that that futility feeling can partly be not even just like, oh, I'll never do XYZ. Maybe part of it can be like the mountain is so tall and each step is such a small part of it. And
Yes.
so when you are, sometimes you only do have the energy, to take one step a week
Mhm.
or whatever that may be. I've been kind of in a season of that lately. It takes a lot to do very little amount in my like larger life uh aspirations and stuff. And sometimes that can just feel like, God, what's the point sometimes? Because it's like, you know, at the end of a few months, you look back and you're like, I've not even actually left the base camp of the mountain. I'm just kind of a little farther from the tent kind of thing. Um,
You're
yeah.
Samwise
So
Gamgee saying to Frodo, "If I take one step further, I'll be the farthest
yeah,
away."
yeah. So, anyway, yeah. All I can think of when I think of that is there's this video where somebody, every time in the movies that Sam takes a step, they play that clip. So every time Sam takes a step, it goes, this is it. If I go one more step, I'll be the farthest from home I've ever been. Cut back to the movie. He takes another step. Cut to, if I take one more step, I'll be the farthest. Anyway, but that is how it is.
And then so I imagine that it would take forever to play that whole movie through, and that's kind of probably how it feels
Yeah.
with the goals sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think the takeaway that I have with this today, because this is an ongoing thing for
Yeah.
sure, I think today it's sort of it's the just do it, it's the do it anyway thing a little bit, but
Mhm.
but that alone isn't the solution, because sometimes that is just very unhelpful. That
True.
mindset, when especially when you're in a place where you really can't for whatever
Mhm.
reason, whether that's mental health, emotional health, or just plain exhaustion.
Mhm.
I think sometimes the celebrating piece that you were talking about, it's looking at how far have I come overall, like not
Mhm.
just looking at how has the last few days been,
Mhm.
but how has the last year been, where am I
Correct.
compared to where I was a year ago, rather than have I made the goals I wanted to in the last 3 months or whatever.
That's really
Yeah.
good. And giving yourself license to not beating yourself up when things don't go according to that plan. So, I mean,
Yeah.
for example, I just my win for this week, I said was, "Hey, I've gotten on this workout routine that I'm doing these things, et cetera, et cetera." Well, actually, this past week, I worked out 5, not 6 days. And
Yeah.
partly that was because I woke up one morning and I mean, because I get up early to do most of my working out, that kind of stuff. and I was just flat out exhausted. And actually, that was Saturday. And usually Saturday is one of my big days because I have more time.
Yeah.
And then I rest on Sundays. Well, I actually rested on Saturday and Sunday this week, and that rest was needed. So it's
Yeah.
not like that was a problem. It's only a problem if I make it a problem because I said, well, I have to do this kind of stuff. And I think sometimes that's where we do encounter some barriers, because I know for me, I can be a very driven person in terms of once I set an objective, I can be very driven on it. And so I can hold myself accountable even if I need that rest, even if I need that step back. I can force
Yeah.
myself to do it and push myself into exhaustion, push myself into that kind of thing. And that's not good either. So
Yeah.
there's balance on all this.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it for now.
Mhm.
I'm sure we'll return to this in some form or another. We often end up sort of touching on various things we've talked about in the past if you're new to the show, just because we're learning more about those things as well as how those things interact with the other processes and the other realizations and things like that we have over time. But before we wrap things up for today, first,
Yes.
Dad,
Yes, Siah.
what is your weekly favorite?
Oh, it's the weekly favorite.
By far, my weekly favorite was my date night with mom on Saturday. We had a really good time. I kind of surprised her because I went to get some flowers and a card and that kind of stuff, and got that all arranged and took it to the restaurant we were going to beforehand. So I took it to the restaurant, dropped it off there. They had it at the table waiting, so that when we got to the restaurant and they said, okay, we have reservations, they took us to the table and there was already flowers and a card sitting there. And
Yeah, that's cute.
that was fun. And that place is one of our favorite restaurants. It's really good food. And then we actually went afterwards and shopped and bought a sectional sofa because we've been needing more seating space. And so we got a new couch, and that was delivered here as well. So that was a busy Saturday, but it was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, my weekly favorite is also a date. Audrey and I on Saturday, we sort of did intentionally, we were like, all right, Saturday is date day, and that doesn't mean anything in particular. We're just going to do whatever
Right.
we feel like and just have no expectations. And we went around Austin. We went to kind of explored around this one area that had these Japanese cheesecakes that was really good. And it's really different. It's kind of like really like it's almost like a sponge cake in its consistency. It's really fluffy and light. It's really good. And we found this really good like dumpling restaurant and things like that. And it was just nice. It was nice to have no expectations, have no specific schedule or plan.
Yeah.
And, we didn't end up doing everything we wanted to do because we kind of ran out of time, but that was also part of the point. Just like,
Yes.
let ourselves take it at our own pace. And so that was just a really nice, chill, fun day. So
Excellent.
well, thank you everyone for listening
Yes.
/ watching. If you want to subscribe to the show on the various platforms, please do so. You can also share on social media if you'd like to. Definitely join in on our ongoing journey. If you want to leave a digital voicemail for us to talk about on the show at some point, you can do so at speakpipe.com/MSP, speakpipe.com/MSP, and we might feature your voicemail in a future episode as like answering a question or as a topic inspiration.
Yes. Siah, you have a wonderful week. Everybody have a wonderful week, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Meaningful Success Podcast is myself, Siah, and my father, Wade.
That's me.
That's him. Music is Brings Back the Feeling by Daniel Gunnarsson, licensed through Epidemic Sound. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.